Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Afternoon.
Oh, well, I got here in the morning. And the sun came out.
Yay!
For you, for us. So my name is Marc and I came here today to tell you all that I am in fact running for the position of Kings County District Attorney. Man, I am humbled by all the encouragement I've gotten to do this from so many of you who care about Brooklyn. Humbled as I've always been at the prospect of serving the people of the nation's most vibrant and engaged community. Humbled, but driven like never before, and like no one before me, and like no one else in this race, with a vision, a clear and certain vision of what criminal justice can truly be in these urgent times. Look at us, Brooklyn. Every day we carry with us onto subways and buses the plans of our ancestors and the needs of our children's children and the nation's energy, really. All of us spectacularly smushed up on each other and making our stances and then pausing to listen to that gentleman who made it out alive from a culture a fascist tried to kill, that woman who has in her lifetime been beaten up and beaten down, and here she is standing. See, that's the thing about Brooklyn. There are so many of us here who, to borrow the words of my hero Audre Lorde, were never meant to survive. So it is better to speak, she wrote, remembering we were never meant to survive. Here we are, brilliant Holocaust survivors and refugees of darkest war and trans women of color and folks who worship religions that our leaders now tell us make them other, and children of devastating natural disaster, and immigrants who risked it all, and grandchildren of slaves, and gay people like me. So we tend to get each other and have each other's backs. And with so many voices, so many rich resources, we often do it first and we often do it best. Okay then. So now let's talk criminal justice. There is agreement, consensus, that our criminal justice system is broken to its foundation, that it needs to be reconsidered and reconstructed from the ground up. So let's do it. First and best. Now, not baby steps, not shaking hands on some little tweak you made to the system while you were talking to your cronies at a bar association dinner, some alliance that will give those cronies new and special access to the old boys club. Oh no, no. I'm talking reform, real and comprehensive reform that benefits all, including the most vulnerable and historically disenfranchised of our neighbors. First and best with the nation watching, learning. Everybody learns from Brooklyn, yo. I mean, we're an international brand these days, right? So why in the world isn't our prosecutor's office using that platform, that great opportunity to lead the nation in reform? Why isn't the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, the third largest prosecutor's office in the nation, in fact doing it first and best? Men of color are warehoused for profit and futures are stolen. Defense lawyers search for alternatives to incarceration for their clients, and there are next to none. Mental health providers and substance abuse counselors are right out here in the community, but the prosecutor's office hasn't reached out to them to develop creative partnerships. People who enjoy the presumption of innocence sit in jail pre-trial for months and years, while prosecutors take their time weighing the political implications of proceeding to trial or making a fair plea offer. Talented young lawyers leave the prosecutor's office in droves because the working conditions stink. Their bosses are always playing defense. They are viewed as expendable cogs in the same old wheel. They are not cultivated, nourished, and trained so that they're ready to walk into court and represent the people using best practices and techniques. Courage is not currently on display at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. For all of us, now and with urgency, there is a need for courage in matters of justice. And there's also a need for balance, a balance that currently does not exist. See, the great modern prosecutor's office must address the community's needs by committing energy and resources in 3 areas, not just one. First, the prosecutor must zealously protect the rights and futures of those accused. That includes initiatives like the Conviction Review Unit, initiated by District Attorney Charles Hines and made a priority by District Attorney Kenneth Thompson when he took office in 2014. But there's so much more to be done. Sentences need to be constructive, designed to truly address the conduct that led to the crime. If a woman acted in the darkest hours of long-term drug addiction, what good does it do to warehouse her for months or years so that she becomes institutionalized in time for her release, with no tools to handle the drug culture that's gonna hit her in the face the minute she walks out those prison doors? No, she needs treatment and preparation for healthy re-entry to the community and a chance to rebuild a life, get a job, become a contributor. Those of us who engage with her in the days and years thereafter are going to be better and safer for it. If a guy's wandering the streets, homeless, hungry, obviously experienced the impact of mental illness, and that mental illness causes him to act out in ways that harm others, immediate action is clearly called for. But what good will it do any of us to have him languish in jail for months and years thereafter, untreated, unsupported for life on the other end of that incarceration? It's our obligation to say, no, we could do better. We must give that person a plea offer that keeps us safe and get some treatment. We will all be safer for it. I've already built relationships with mental health and substance abuse treatment providers that I will utilize as district attorney to provide outstanding alternatives to incarceration where that is, in fact, the constructive answer. Secondly, the prosecutor is obligated to zealously, thoughtfully, carefully protect the interests of those who have been harmed by criminal conduct. Whether these folks refer to themselves as victims and witnesses or as survivors, prosecutors are absolutely charged with their care. They must be apprised of all steps in the process. That is a process that's unfamiliar and daunting by its very nature. Their concerns must be addressed with empathy and cultural competence. Their opinions must be heard with respect. And their safety needs, including the need for counseling in the aftermath of trauma, must always be made a priority. The current administration is failing in these responsibilities. Why does that matter so much to me? Let me tell you a little bit about my background. When I was a sophomore in college, someone who's still real important in my life said, I just took a course called Dealing with Sexual Assault. It was really good, you'll like it, you should take it, so I did. It was being taught through the School of Nursing, because back then, 1983, the term victim advocacy wasn't even a thing. I was the only guy in the class. I found the class to be alarming, compelling, so enlightening. We spoke of sexual assault as a tool of war and power and degradation. We spoke of how to survive it, how to investigate it, how to prosecute it, with all roads of our discussion leading to the dream of how to stop it. I emerged from that class with a career plan. I wanted to be a victim advocate, a lawyer, a prosecutor. It is who I am at my core. So I came, at the age of 25, to Brooklyn to work for Elizabeth Holtzman, to be an ADA. It was 1987. I have, over the course of 3 decades since, investigated and prosecuted domestic violence, and child abuse, and sexual assault, and homicide, and firearms trafficking, and gang violence, and narcotics conspiracy, and police brutality, and hate crimes. I have fought hard on behalf of the people, often under the glare of media attention. Just in the last 14 months, I am proud to say that I conducted trials and secured just convictions in cases involving the brutal assault of a transgender woman simply for being who she is, a police officer who shot and killed an unarmed man in a dark stairwell. That young man's name was Akai Gurley, and a police officer who violated the principles followed by his brave colleagues every day by stomping on the head of a restrained civilian. These trial experiences distinguish me from every one of the other people who seek this job, who haven't walked the walk and tried a case in years, haven't even spent any significant time sitting in a Brooklyn courtroom to see what's even happening there. That matters. If you haven't been in the trenches fighting the fight, you don't know what Brooklyn needs on both sides of the courtroom today. Now, I'm the fighter you need. Lastly, the modern prosecutor needs to develop and honor relationships with each and every neighborhood in this borough to address the day-to-day safety concerns of those who live there. And that includes neighborhoods that are now being completely ignored. The current administration has unwisely concentrated all power of the district attorney's office at 350 J Street in downtown Brooklyn, that big marble building. Occasionally, they'll invite select members of the community through those doors, make formal presentations to them, talk at them, brag about what they've accomplished. How about getting out here and listening out here in the community, developing risk reduction strategies, and listening to the ways specific neighborhoods are changing because of the explosion in opiate addiction, or the challenges of gentrification, or the vulnerabilities of the immigrant population and the growing senior population? How about spending less energy and money on a sophisticated PR machine designed to make you look good, and spending money and energy on doing good, real good, lasting good, right here where the people need it, where they need you? I'm your guy for that. Executives in the current DA's office ride to work every day with their security details in big, fancy, expensive vehicles, driving past the people they serve and then getting whisked into the big marble building. Well, I gotta tell you, this is how I'm getting to work. This is how I'm getting to work. If the streets and subways aren't safe enough for you, and I'm the district attorney, shame on me. And if they're safe enough for you, they're safe enough for me. We'll chat on the way. I'm your guy on the subway. I'll tell you what you don't need. You don't need a rich celebrity TV star who's scooping up more money right now and thinking about what public office would be a fun toy for him to acquire next. We've already got one of those. You don't need professional politicians who pick this job as their next way to earn a living off the government dole. You don't need people who were handed support during backdoor meetings that you were not invited to. And you don't need someone who was handed this job and now is sitting up there in that marble building asleep at the wheel. You need courage. Look, I walked away from the DA's office under its current leadership last June because I couldn't stomach the politics that was daily tainting the system. I didn't have a cushy job with a fat pension lined up waiting for me, or political connections that landed me another government title. I just took a stand. I spoke the truth about what I saw, and they pummeled me to shut me up, and I kept standing. And I'm not looking for any accolades for that. Some of you've done the same thing in your lives when you've needed to, and some of you will do it in the future because it's what you do when you know things just aren't right. Enough with what's not right. Let's talk about how to make it right. The Kings County District Attorney's Office under my leadership will be a place where the door is open to exchange of information and ideas about what true criminal justice reform will look like. These discussions won't just take place at the offices and fancy boardrooms. Community think tanks brought together by my staff will meet in public libraries to develop strategies for safety and fairness in the system. The currently existing Civil Rights Bureau will be split in two to become what it needs to be. Two robust bureaus filled with specially trained staff. One to handle the terrible, large numbers of hate crimes we're seeing. And the other, a law enforcement complaint investigations bureau to carefully screen and investigate allegations of misconduct committed by law enforcement officers. A dogged and re-energized vehicular crimes bureau will aggressively address all of the family-shattering consequences of killing and maiming from behind the wheel. Those who commit crimes with their cars, thinking that they will never have to turn around and look straight at the consequences of their actions, will see that those days are over. I'll immediately create a civil disobedience case review bureau. The marching isn't over, my friends, in the city, and plenty of it is happening in Brooklyn. And when folks get arrested during organized acts of civil disobedience, those cases should be screened and disposed of quickly. and reports of any abuses committed during those arrests immediately referred to the Law Enforcement Complaint Investigations Bureau. The gangs and narcotics trafficking bureaus that the current administration unwisely cobbled together will once again be separate and distinct bureaus, staffed with attorneys who are specially trained to do the work under proper supervision. The Gangs Bureau will at last operate with a full understanding of how hard it is to get these cases to trial, providing adequate support and protection for those who are called to testify in these matters. And as for what had been previously referred to as major narcotics investigations, well, the Bureau handling those cases will be entirely refocused so that folks who made a couple of low-level drug sales to support their addictions will no longer be scooped up in sweeps and charged with conspiracy on the same 100-count conspiracy indictments as sophisticated, hardcore drug traffickers. No, the Bureau that conducts long-term investigations will become the Firearms and Narcotics Trafficking Bureau, and will aggressively pursue those that travel up the I-95 corridor with assault weapons and then dump them on our streets where they are bought for nothing and used to kill our sisters and brothers. A full division of the office will be created to provide smart alternatives to formal charging and incarceration so that folks who need it are in fact directed to treatment and education and work. I will not allow assistant district attorneys to continue to fall in line and feed the prison industrial complex each and every day. The culture of complacency that continues to define the administration of justice in this nation will end right here in Brooklyn. Training will be offered to police officers regarding the right identification procedures and interviewing protocols to be used so we can eliminate constitutional rights violations. We will develop summits where fine police officers and bright young people will sit down together to discuss the sources of miscommunication and hostility between them. I was doing that work a few years ago, and we were getting somewhere, and it was awesome until the current administration ripped away the funding. And speaking of our young people, 2 new programs will immediately be put in place. One, a program in the middle schools that will address in real-world terms the direct link between bullying behavior and criminal conduct, like hate crimes and elder abuse and human trafficking and domestic violence and sexual assault. In the second program, it will be entitled the District Attorney's Council of Young Civil Rights Leaders. High school students, natural-born leaders, will be selected from very different high schools, yeshiva schools, and mosque-based schools, and ESL schools, and LGBTQ schools, and gang challenge schools. Kids who would otherwise never have been in the same room and gotten the chance to learn each other, they'll be joined in the DA's boardroom, all dressed up and ready for leadership, to answer a question together. What is the profile of our nation's next great civil rights leader? Together, they will develop a curriculum for study and discussion around that question, to be presented first in their own schools and then in high schools around the borough. I will work with these people. I can't wait. And let me tell you one other thing that I will do myself. If, heaven forbid, one of New York's many finest, or bravest, or boldest is seriously injured or killed while doing the job with dignity on the streets of Brooklyn, I will try that case myself. While I am first to hold individual police officers accountable when they violate the public trust and thereby put their colleagues in a terrible position, I'm also first to thank our police officers when I see them on duty, doing the things none of the rest of us are doing, standing in the bitter cold, working long, odd hours, and putting themselves in harm's way each and every day to keep us safe. When they fall in the line of duty, I believe it is our sacred obligation to do absolutely everything within our power to secure justice for them and all who love them. I've got more. I've got many more ideas for innovation. I'll be blogging about them regularly at my campaign site live today, www.marc4da.com. Kaz will help you out getting there. Oh, and I'll have more ideas after I talk to you folks. I mean, I look forward to coffees at Dunkin' Donuts and meetings around your kitchen tables in coming months. We have a lot to talk about. Now look, some will say, some have said, Marc, why do you want to do this? You're not the right culture, gender, color. You're not rich enough, not politically connected enough. Well, okay, so you don't need rich and entitled. And you surely don't need politics as usual in the office I seek, an office where decisions have to be based on what is right and wrong, not on who owes whom. And I get the impetus for identity politics. I understand its value, and I see its value, but I have a hunch about Brooklyn, and I think I'm right. See, I am not Asian, but I have sisters of my heart who are. I am not of African descent, but I surely know why we've been marching together and what matters and why. I am not a woman, but I have been shaped by many and know what it does to the soul when you're directed to stand over there and wait your turn. I am not physically disabled, but I know what it feels like to be publicly maligned in crude terms for being who I am. I am not a cop, but I have learned from many of true honor. I have not lost a child to gun violence, but I have held many, too many, in my arms and prepared them for trial who have. I do not suffer from debilitating mental illness, but I have often been present in the fight to overcome it. I am not addicted, but I have seen it hover and menace those I love, and I have cheered their victory. I am not elderly, but I care for two who are, and I wake in the night like you do with concerns and plans for their future safety. I have not been jailed, but I am angry that too many of my brothers have. I am not Muslim, but I have walked through fear and hate, and I surely walk with Muslim heroes now. Brooklyn defies representation by means of a single human face, and instead barrels forward by means of a singular human spirit. If I am not you, I am surely a son of Brooklyn, and I carry her spirit inside me, and I want to keep her safe. Now, this is new for me, because I'm frankly not used to speaking publicly about myself. I walked out of that classroom and into the courtroom all those years ago with a mission, not to speak for myself, but to speak for you. When somebody hurt your body, when somebody took your child's life, when somebody accused you of something you didn't do, when somebody stomped on your rights, that's what true advocates do. I've done that proudly for 30 years, and now I see that I am the one who is uniquely qualified and driven to build an office comprised only of people who share that mission. Fill it with brilliant young lawyers who grew up here in Brooklyn or chose this as home, and valuable women and men who left the office when they saw it had lost its way, and talented veterans of different kinds of legal battles who are compelled to do this now, to serve, because our world is what it is right now, uncertain and unkind, and too often unjust. I'll match those lawyers with innovative clinicians and policy builders and a vibrant and diverse support staff, all of whom get the mission, already and trained to listen to you and learn you, and then speak for you in that moment, just that moment when you need them to. I know how to do it, I'm ready to do it, and I'm going to do it. I promise you. Here we stand this morning at this spot where Brooklyn neighborhoods converge. That glorious arch beside us, steps from monuments to John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln, American people whose accomplishments were defined by their readiness to get to work with others and their adherence to the courage of their convictions. This is the time, and this is the perfect place to start. To quote another hero of mine, James Baldwin, a native son of city streets, the future is like heaven. Everyone exalts it, but no one wants to go there. Let's go there. Are you ready? Yeah. Are you coming? Yeah. Then let us, my friends, get to work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.